All right, it is 6 o'clock on Monday, March 31st. This is a special meeting of the City Council of the City of Alburnett, and we will go ahead and call this meeting to order. I will waive the Pledge of Allegiance and start with roll call. Councilor Trump.
Present.
Councilor Bosenberg.
Present.
Councilor Sukup.
Present.
Councilor Myers.
Present.
Councilor West is absent. Let the record reflect that we do have a quorum to conduct a business tonight. I would seek a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Myers. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Bosenberg. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item number 5 on the agenda, public hearing for FY26 proposed property tax levy. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Moved by Myers. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Sukup. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The public hearing is open as of 6:01 p.m. All right. So we do have packet for this meeting. You will notice page 2 is proof of publication. So this public hearing was published in the Gazette on Wednesday, March 12th. We also duly posted on the city's website, as well as our social media and social media for the fire department, as they are affiliated with the city, and it was posted around town. So do we have any questions, comments from the public? I'll go kind of through a run through too, so we can open that up afterwards as well. But if anybody had that they wanted to start with. All right. So we have for fiscal year 26, which starts July 1st of 2025 and goes through June 30th of 2026. Our consolidated general fund will be $254,029. That is a flat $8.20 from last year. So there's no increase to the consolidated general fund property tax levy. The increase from last year is just through valuation increases. So we did not increase the rate at which we are asking for taxes for the general fund. Property insurance, while we did see an increase this year, it does look as though it decreased on the budget. I think we just got closer to actuals. This year we had the proposals in hand early enough for what next year's insurance may look like. The biggest increase is on our FICA and IPERS. So again, I think a lot of this is more we're closer to actuals than necessarily seeing an increase because we have just as many eligible employees for FICA and IPERS as we did in last fiscal year. So we've made the adjustment there. Decrease in other employee benefits. Our debt service does appear to be an increase. We have not taken on any new debt. The debt schedules change a little bit from year to year, so it's all just a matter of how much principal versus interest we pay, and those are all scheduled out from when we sign those debt certificates or take on that debt. So that does fluctuate from year to year, but we've not added anything to debt service. We just need to make sure we're covering the actuals on that. And if you'll recall from last year's budget and tax asking is we didn't have actuals in there and we had to cover some of the difference with other funds. And so this is an accurate reflection of what our debt service looks like. And so the regular tax rate, so that includes the general fund at $8.20 plus those other levies, we are at $12.48. That does appear to be an increase from last year, which was $11.03, but we did have some misses on this year's budget, which is why we've had 2 budget amendments to help cover things like wages and other things that would have been covered by these property taxes. And so really, I did bring up fiscal year 24 because that's more accurate given that we had everything accounted for. I don't think we had to do a budget amendment in 24, and the rate then was $11.82. So that helps close that gap a little bit, which is why we're at the $12.48. Just for context, I did go out and look at neighboring communities. And of the ones I have on my list, we are third lowest for tax asking. And one of those that is lower than us is Lisbon, and it's by 1 penny. So Lisbon's at $12.47. We're at $12.48. Coggin is at $12.90. Center Point's at $13.41. Central City's at $13.82. Walker's at $14.45, and Mount Vernon's at $17.24. So we do lean on the lower side. Any questions? We're open book. If you have a question, go ahead and ask it.
I'm just thinking. So for wages, that was one question. Because you said you were a little low or something?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So last year's wages, when we did the budget, were not accurately calculated. And so we've had to do 2 budget amendments to help offset that, in which case that doesn't, for fiscal year 25, which is the current year that we're in, it won't increase property taxes because we take it out of what we call fund balance. So we take it out of money that we already had in the bank account. So you're not going to see that increase reflected on where your tax statement shows current fiscal year. That was without those adjustments. So we did have to make some adjustments for wages.
Why were they not calculated correctly? Or-
So last year, we used a different spreadsheet mechanism when we were doing our budgeting. And so our wages are actually split multiple ways, especially depending on the position. So I'm going to use Mac, for example. His wages are split equally between various funds. So we've got a public works, we've got streets, and then water and sewer. So 2 of those, well, and even then out of streets, his portion of streets is split halfway between general fund and road use tax. And so it can get kind of complicated in how you account for those, what's out of general fund versus some of those, like the water and sewer is what we call proprietary. And so that's not included in the property taxes. So similarly, Vicky, our city clerk, her wages, because she processes water bills, some of her wages come out of water as well. And so somewhere we just had a miss in how all of that got calculated towards the general fund.
I see.
Yeah, it takes us a while to get
Yeah.
everything straight,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, sure.
And then, last year was the first year they moved to, this proposed property tax levy. Before we had a max tax levy, which I still don't know if I could explain if you asked me about it today. So I'm pleased with this new method, but we did shift how we were
Okay.
planning the budget last year. And so we fine tuned it and refined it quite a bit this year. We're feeling
And
good.
when, like, our property taxes go up because of our assessment at our home, how does that work into your budget?
So that's where we see that valuation increase. And so on the first line of the public hearing notice, the taxable valuations current year was at 30,242,478. So that's current year.
Are you looking
Oh,
or something different?
I have something different. I have what we posted for
Okay.
our public hearing.
Okay.
So we'll say it's at,
Yeah.
because it goes up, so it's 30,242,000
Okay.
approximately. So that was this current budget year that we're in. So of that, we ask $8.20 per thousand, I think it is, yes. Next year, we're still at the $8.20, but the valuation went up to 30,956,000. So we gained approximately 700,000 in valuations from just those property assessments going up.
So that should help with your budget?
Yes,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
So that helps us keep the general fund flat.
Mhm.
So the only adjustments we made this year were around primarily FICA and IPERS, which are the benefit, like the retirement for employees, and then debt service, and that just follows a schedule. Most of those are 20 to 30 year notes for our debt service. We do have a couple that are almost up, which will be nice. It'll help free up some debt if the city wanted to do another project or just recognize those savings for a couple of years. So, because we can only have so much debt, and I think right now we are maxed out, which is what the state likes to see. They like to see you using your debt.
Mhm.
So, which personally I don't like. I don't like having to pay interest on things, but for some reason that's what the state likes to see, so. Very good questions. Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions? Do we get any written correspondence, any emails, anybody call in? Okay. Well, we do have to leave this open for at least 15 minutes, so if you have other questions, like we're here, otherwise we'll just, I won't say sit awkwardly, but.
So I don't really go to the website much, but how many employees are there?
We have three. So we've got a city administrator, city clerk, and public works.
Mhm.
So
Do you have like part-time people too, or?
not currently. We did for a while. We had, it's shifted a little bit. So for a while we had a full-time city clerk, full-time public works director, and then a part-time public works staff. We found that to be quite seasonal, between either mowing or snow plowing. One year it was incredibly dry and there just wasn't a lot to do. And so, unless you have the right person in there, we find a lot of downtime for that position. So then we shifted to, city administrator, and we had a part-time clerk in the office. And then about April of last year, we had some turnover and we decided it was beneficial, to really have someone intimate with the budget, the finances. There's a lot that goes on the back end with legislation and those types of things. Like I'm sure you've all heard about property tax reform. That's going to take us years to comprehend and understand, especially a small community. We don't have the resources of a Cedar Rapids, where they have lawyers and, a department of finance. And so we did go, it's still a part-time clerk position, but it's more hours because before we were at 20 and we upped that to 35, and then the city administrator. So yeah, just the three of them, but they keep it running and do a wonderful job.
Sounds good.
Great questions. We are trying to get a lot more projects done, even if they're not necessarily high dollar publicly visible projects. We've got some software technology upgrades that we're doing to just make things more transparent. We had a great example. We just recently had an audit, and it went so much smoother with the new system that we have, and they're releasing even more improvements. So
That's good.
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm an open book.
I can't think of anything else. Answer that.
Perfect. We'll have a similar public hearing for our budget. So this is just the property tax asking. And then we also have a public hearing for the budget that's going to get scheduled tonight, but then we've got to post it. So we're looking sometime the week of April 17th. So we can keep an eye out for that as well, because then we can get into details because even outside of property tax just is what feeds our general fund and a couple of those special levies. But we have other revenue such as local option sales tax, road use tax, and then our water and sewer bills. And so the budget covers how we use all of that revenue and what projects and those types of things. So
Sounds good.
awesome.
I just got some through the mail, and I really don't know about this too much, but if I read it right, that I know you had nothing to do with the school, but we're gonna have 3 increases on our property tax, 3 different. Cause I saw you guys are like 2%. The city will be 2%.
Well, so our percent change, I'm not sure what your sheet shows on our proposed property tax that we published, which I'm happy to get you a copy of. It looks, okay, and don't hold your breath. It looks like a 27% increase. It's actually not. That was because the state did a couple of things with like an emergency fund we can no longer use, so we had to close that out. So as I mentioned, we're moving from, realistically, it's about 66 cents. Is what the city has raised. I wouldn't be surprised. So your property taxes, and I love those statements. They provide a lot of transparency. So yes, you do pay into the city, the school district, the county, and then I believe also Kirkwood. So there are 4 different taxing entities that we pay into. We as residents, not we as the city, pay into. I wouldn't be surprised if there's an increase on all of them. I just know our insurance alone, our health insurance went up, was it 12%? 18, that was the 18. our health insurance went up 18% and our property insurance went up 12. Yeah, so
Which isn't, unusual.
it's not, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, I mean, this is
Yeah.
how we fund. Additionally, we're not exempt from the Alliant increases, so our utilities go up. So, yeah, I would imagine it's across the board. Yeah, you'll see those tax increases.
And you brought up the other thing that I've been seeing on the news. I know it's not gonna be a quick change, but I was just wondering how, if you're gonna lose any money from, if they change. I know you haven't got much information about it yet, but
Yeah, we don't have a lot of information. My understanding at this time is that basically they're gonna max how much we can increase. And so, I believe, I've heard 2%. So where cities and school districts would not be able, even if we can, in our calculation, show, hey, our FICA went up 5% or our IPERS went up 5%, they're gonna be like, hey, you're stuck at 2. You've got to figure out other ways to fund that. So we won't lose money per se. We'll just lose that local control over how much we could kind of say that we need. One of my concerns that I did see I think it's resolved, again, nothing's been finalized, is I had originally heard that if you did like a development, so if we had 40 new houses go in, that's new taxable valuation. So that 30,956,000 is going to increase substantially. Originally I had heard the 2% would cap even if there was new valuation. And now I'm hearing that if there's growth, you get to recognize that growth. So, because otherwise I'm like, you de-incentivize any kind of development, especially in smaller towns, because it takes a lot of resources. So great questions. So yeah, we don't have a lot of details. There is an organization called the Iowa League of Cities. They do a lot at the legislative level and then bring it back to cities and kind of help them digest and understand the impacts. So, and even they are still advocating, and I don't really think we haven't heard much from them either.
So committee, I think this week and upcoming.
Yeah, in both House and Senate have different ones they're talking about, so.
So when I was looking at this sheet, you guys probably.
Yes.
One.
We do.
So, for $100,000 house, seemed like your taxes would go up, 300 and some dollars per year. So you take that times 2 or 3 or 4, then you're up about 1,200. Am I looking at that right?
You are, but what I would suggest you do is definitely go out to the assessor's website, because your assessed value is not your taxable value. They're actually, if you scroll all the way to the bottom of the property, there's gonna be 2 numbers, your assessed value and then your taxable valuation. So the taxable one is what they calculate that 300 or, the 3% increase. But so like our $8.20 for general fund comes off that taxable valuation. So,
yeah, that's what I was kind of wondering too,
Well,
because mine jumped up way up too.
Yeah. and I did go to their site and then it told me the estimated increase on the property tax, which was about $1,900. Whoa.
yeah, knowing that,
And that's because our assessment went up 50-some thousand
sure.
too. So then you get a double kind of whammy.
Right? Yeah, I'd be curious if all of that's on the taxable value,
Okay.
because, yeah,
I'll double check.
yeah, double check
Yeah.
that.
Thank you.
And if you have any questions, Vicky would
Okay.
be happy to,
Yeah.
help answer too, so. And we've got connections at Lynn County if we need to help lean in.
Nothing ever goes down. It just keeps going up.
Yes. Well, and we feel that, again, when we do talk about budget, our cost for chemicals and everything else for the water
Yeah.
system, but that doesn't come out of property taxes. That's funded, that has to be funded out of, what we take from water bills.
We're just kind of trying to make sense of all of it,
Yes, I think the statements help. It takes the lid off the box a little bit, but
Yeah.
there's still a lot of questions. And what you'll see on there, it is a little deceiving. And so actually, Vicky, are ours still out, our city statements? Or I could just, I don't wanna look at hers.
Oh, you can look at it. This,
Yeah, I was just seeing, because they have a number on there that doesn't
Yeah.
always.
Yeah.
Yeah, so okay, so the front, there's three numbers. I have the same thing.
okay,
So you're gonna see your certified rate is that first column. So it says the certified for this year. That's what's already in place. Then there's an effective rate. That's the one that I think confuses people. So what the effective rate means is if that takes into account if we didn't make any changes to any of the taxes and it considers your valuation increase. So basically on here, it's telling me that what our tax rate would be if we didn't change anything is it would be $10.78, but that's not a reality because that doesn't account for any of the budgeting process or anything else. So that effective rate is really just telling you if you use this year's taxes with next year's valuation
okay.
is what that effective rate is. And then the proposed rate is what we've worked together to make sure all of our actuals are
Mhm.
accounted for.
Okay.
So it's that middle column that I'm like, I think that throws people if they don't quite understand, excuse me, how they're coming to that number. Okay, very good questions. Anything else?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all I needed.
All right. Well, with that, I would seek a motion to close the public hearing.
So move.
Moved by Bozenberg. Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, somebody speak up. Who wants it?
Sure.
Second by Trump.
I'll buy it.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We close the public hearing at 6:22 PM. That is the end of our business agenda for this evening, so I would seek a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
So move.
Moved by Trum. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Bozenberg. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are adjourned at 6:22 PM.